I don't doubt for a single second that you are working extremely hard in the gym, that you are trying your best to get the best results possible. You're working your ass off. I don't doubt it. However, unfortunately, just because you're training super duper hard doesn't mean you're going to get the results that you would think you'd get from training super duper hard. There's another major component to a positive outcome as it relates to training that we need to make sure we don't neglect, and that is recovery. Training plus recovery. So this video is going to be about major recovery habits that I think, honestly, are absolutely instrumental when it comes to making progress in the gym. So we're not going to waste any time at all. Let's just dive right into it. So yes, training is not enough. We need to make sure we are recovering properly. A lot of people will talk about sleep and nutrition as the primary components of recovery. In fact, I don't really even hear people talk about sleep as much. It's really just nutrition. Obviously, sleep is extremely important, and that's going to be our first component here. But before we dive into that, training plus recovery. The reason why it's important to look at these things as equal sides of the equation is because without one or the other, the chances of you getting a successful, hopefully I'm spelling this correctly, outcome is nowhere near as high as if you have both of these pieces involved in the equation. Okay, so we need to make sure that not only are we putting in the work in the gym, but we are recovering well. We're putting the work in outside of the gym, so to speak. Okay, so please just understand that recovery is extremely important, and if you're young, this is probably the most important thing for you to focus on right now, because I guarantee you all you're probably focusing on right now is your training. You're not thinking about this. How do I know? Because I've been there. All right, so please make sure that you understand the value of recovery. Now let's actually talk about what are some of these major recovery habits. So the very first thing is going to be sleep. Now, why is this number one? Because this is by far the most important variable in the equation of recovery. You absolutely must prioritize your sleep. There is no way around this. There is no pill you can take, no drug you can use, there is no food you can eat, water you can drink to substitute sleep. I gotta be honest with you. For a long time, I used to buy the bullshit of abs are 90% nutrition and 10% training. Your strength is 50% nutrition, 50% training. Like, I used to buy that, right? Like, yeah, you just got to eat well and train well. Very few people talk to me about sleep. It wasn't until I started to see my performances and my training get so negatively impacted by this variable that I started to realize just how important this variable really is. So sleep is absolutely imperative. Now, what I want you to understand here is this needs to be prioritized and optimized. Okay, so you have to prioritize it. What does that mean? That means actually structure your schedule, whether you're a student, you're a full-time athlete, you have a career outside of competing or your training or what have you. You've got a family. No matter what your situation is, sleep needs to be prioritized. Now, I understand there are some cases where this can't be done, okay? And I understand that, but you got to do the best you can, okay? And that's we'll talk about the optimization in a second. But prioritize it by making sure that you are structuring your life around it, okay? You have to account for it. Don't let it just be something that falls to the wayside, and then when you get to it, you get to it. So you got to prioritize it and optimize it. Now, there are a lot of different ways we can go about optimizing sleep. That's not what this video is about. You can talk to Andrew Huberman, or not talk to him, but listen to him on a podcast if you want to listen to about, shit like that. But all I want you to think about is optimizing sleep. So that probably means cold room, dark room, making sure that maybe you have a white noise machine. Maybe you use eye covers when you sleep. Maybe you take some magnesium glycinate or something. You get the picture. You got to start thinking about optimizing your sleep. If you need a CPAP, invest in a CPAP. These are all things that I want you to be considering, because prioritizing and optimizing sleep ultimately leads you to be prioritizing and optimizing your training. Okay, so that's it. That's the first major category, sleep. And again, some of you may be thinking like, wow, I fucking knew that. This was a waste of time. Guys, I'm not fucking kidding you. There is nothing you can do to substitute this. Like, the older you get, the more training years you have under your belt, the more you'll realize just how fucking important this is. And if you can just do this and then train well, even if your food's pretty fucked up and everything else is pretty fucked up, just this alone will help make sure that you have a successful training outcome. Because there's so much that has to do with this. Not just muscular recovery, not just your central nervous system, but and this is the silent kill here, stress. Stress. Your body needs time to rest so that it can cope with stress. Your body perceives physical and mental stress the same way. It's stress, and it will eat into you. This is one of the best ways to not only regenerate so that you can deal with that stress, but it's also one of the best ways to make sure that you can manage the stress over time, okay? There is no human that is gonna miss 2, 3, 4 nights of sleep and be normal at the end of that. It's not possible. Whereas there's a human who can fast for 4 days and honestly still be pretty normal. You understand? So sleep is absolutely imperative, and it affects everything. So make sure you're prioritizing and optimizing sleep. Okay, on to the next. Number 2 is nutrition. But what we gotta do is break nutrition down into 2 major pieces, okay? One is general. 2 is specific. And by specific, all I mean, use a different color, is training. Okay, and I'm gonna elaborate on this in a second. Now, general nutrition, we don't gotta spend too much, oh, I'm not even in the frame. General nutrition, we don't even gotta spend too much time on this, mainly because you guys know what I'm talking about here when I say general nutrition, right? It's basically just eat well based on your current goals, right? Whether it's body weight goals, whether it's physique goals, performance goals, a combination of all 3. For example, I'm a competitive powerlifter in a specific weight class. I'm in the 93 kg weight class, so I have to make weight, right? So that means that I can't just eat whatever the fuck I want, depending on where my body weight's at relative to that weight class and how far out I am from a competition. So I need to take into account my body weight, my physical, my literal body weight on a scale. I have to take into account my performance in the gym, and I have to take into account, I mean, for me personally, my physique. I like to make sure that I look like an athlete. I don't just want to perform like an athlete. I want to look as strong as I am, and I want to feel as strong as I am, right? So for me, I take into account all these variables, and that creates my general nutrition plan. That's pretty simple. You guys, you got to fucking be on top of this, okay? I mean, this is very simple stuff. This is your protein, which for this video, let's just assume you want at least 0.7 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Anything over a gram it might be a little bit harder for you to get. The most I would go, honestly, is 1.2 grams of protein per pound of body weight. It really just depends on what situation you're in. But protein, really important, prioritize that. Carbs, gonna be your primary fuel source, more or less, for all of your activity. And then fats, especially healthy fats, obviously very important for hormone health, just your organs, everything. But also it's a fuel source for like your steady state stuff, your low intensity stuff. Okay, so you want to have like a nice balance. I'm not going to dive into this. Isn't a nutritional video. Okay, I'm not going to dive too deep into this, but you need to make sure you're prioritizing your protein. So getting plenty of protein in, that's absolutely. Like when we're talking about recovery and nutrition, general nutrition especially, protein is this should never honestly be below 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. Unless you're a competitive bodybuilder, and you need somewhere to pull calories from to create even more of a deficit, fine. Or you have some sort of, biological illness or something like that, or something that you have like a protein deficiency, something. I don't want to sound stupid. Something that makes it dangerous for you to overconsume protein, fine. For example, my girlfriend's mother has Parkinson's, and I don't know the true science of it, but I do know that she can't have too much protein throughout the day because it affects the medication she has to take. And so that would be an example of obviously you making sure that you're consuming enough protein and you're consuming the right amounts of protein based on your own individual needs and situation. Okay, but all in all, by and large, focus on getting enough protein in, okay? Now, carbs, again, carbs are gonna be really, really important. If you find that you're just super tired, you don't have the energy to perform in the gym, you're probably not consuming enough carbs, plain and simple. You wanna make sure that all of your food sources, obviously, are wholesome, clean sources, so minimally processed foods, really, really important. It's a little bit more expensive to eat that way. We'll make a separate video on food, nutrition, grocery shopping, all that stuff. But for all intents and purposes, just know that you want to prioritize whole foods, stuff that's relatively clean, simple stuff. Again, and clean just simply means minimally processed. And you're making sure that you are eating a balanced diet that supports whatever your training goal is, or physique goal, or body weight goal, what have you. Okay, so that's the general stuff, all right? Now, the real kicker here is specific nutrition. So what this means is training nutrition. And what I'm referring to here is session. So the training session nutrition. What are you doing during your actual training session? What are you consuming to support your performance in the gym? For me, this is what I've found to work really, really well. We're going to combine, you know what, we'll use the red. We're going to combine, I'm going to just create an arrow here. We're going to combine before the session / during, water. Very important that you're drinking plenty of water throughout the day. You want to stay hydrated. Water, electrolytes, and carbs, okay? So these three, this makes up the pre, okay? I almost do this religiously at this point, whether or not it's necessary, honestly. Water, plenty of water. Some electrolytes, again, the way that I dose it is based on really just the serving that the electrolyte the product tells me. I just go by that, I don't overdo it. And carbs, I use dextrose powder for this, usually. Either that or fruit, something like that, maybe honey, something like that, okay? But this is the pre. The carbs, fuel for my training session. The electrolytes, the water, very, very important for cognitive function and also physical performance. We know this, okay? Now, post, let me erase this arrow now that you guys know what this is for. Post, very simple. Water, protein, carbs, okay? Boom, and this is post. Sorry if this is super messy. Water, protein, carbs for post, obviously, okay? I'm trying to replenish some of my glycogen that I burn, that I use, with more carbs, okay? Protein, and by the way, for the pre, in terms of the number of carbs, I mean, it's up to you. I usually go about 20 to 50 grams of carbs pre, because it depends on how many meals I've gotten in before training. But for post, I almost always just stick to 18 to 20 grams of carbs. It just depends on the serving for the dextrose. Protein, obviously I try and get protein in post training, especially if it's after cardio, and water, obviously, because it mixes all this stuff together. Okay, so that's the specific training session nutrition. If you just alone focused on this, let's say like this general stuff was still a little bit of a mess, and you just focused on this, you'll see a massive increase in your ability to perform day in, day out in the gym. I guarantee it, okay? So that's everything on nutrition. Again, I'm sorry if it's not super, super deep and super, I'm sorry if it's super surface level, but I want to make sure that we're picking up the pace here. But yeah, that's nutrition, okay? The general stuff though, guys, please start tracking. I partner with a company called Carbon Diet app. It's basically like an AI coach mixed with like a tracking app. And that's what I've been using for the last like year. And it's kept me like fucking on point, super easy to use. I do have an affiliate link with it. So I full transparency, I do make a little bit of commission on it, but I think it's only like $7 a month, $6 a month. So I think I make like maybe fucking $1 or something like that. I don't know. I'm probably less than that. But I'll give you guys that link in the description if you want to use that, but you don't have to. You can use any tracking app that you want to. That's just the one that I use because my nutrition coach is Lane Norton, and he is a part founder of that company. So yeah, it's that simple. General nutrition, you got to track. That way you know how much protein, carbs, fats you're getting in, and you know what to adjust when. Okay, so that was principle number, oh shit, this thing's fucking moving around. That was number 2. We're cruising, guys. We're fucking cruising. We are cruising. I wanted to do a recovery one because the last few ones have been all about training. And I would love to get deeper into some of these topics, obviously. But since we've never done a recovery video before, I want to make sure that, you know, we do one and we start there, okay? This is something that I don't ever hear anyone in this space truly talk about. And I get it. It's not flashy. It's not fun. People hint at it, but they don't ever loop it into recovery. And that's the connection we need to make right now. This, I can't say, is a level above sleep, because without sleep, you don't have this. However, it's right there. Your mind is so, so important in everything you do, but most especially in training. It's honestly everything. And you'll see as you elevate, as you grow, as you become more experienced as a lifter, maybe as a competitor, you'll start to realize that it really becomes a mental game more than anything else. You know, the work will get done, the training gets done, but so much of the interference. There's a book called Greatness. In Greatness, Dr. David Cook, the author, talks about how performance is potential minus interference. Like, that's the formula. You want to be amazing. You want to be great at what you do. You want to be the best in the world. Figure out that formula. It's performance equals potential minus interference. You know what? Fuck it. Let's throw that one on the board. It's not mine. I don't take credit for it, but it is really, really powerful. Your mind is responsible for dealing with all of this interference, okay? And that's why once you get to a certain level, you start to realize you have the strength to win. You have the ability to win. You have the ability to be the best. You've done it. You put the work has been done. It's this that's stopping you. And once you realize that, holy moly, whole new level opens up for you. It takes time to get there. Not only does it take time to realize that, it takes time to deal with that and then to build this. Okay, and that's the truth. So like I said, taking care of your mind is extremely important because you deal with a lot of stress. You want to make sure that you can cope with that stress. You want to make sure that you can handle all of it and move forward and sustain your ability to perform and move forward over time, right? It doesn't make sense to be able to sprint, burn out for a month, sprint, burn out for a month. It's just, unfortunately, it doesn't work, especially if you're somebody who's looking for successful training outcomes. It's not going to work because how do we make progress? You have to adapt to certain stimuli over time, and that has to stack over time, which means we need a process that is sustainable, okay? If you could just build tons of muscle and tons of strength in 2 weeks and then afford to burn out for a month, and then that muscle and strength stayed there, and then you were able to build on that again for another 2 weeks and then burn out, and then sure, you could do that all day long, right? Fine. But that's not how it works, right? We need tons and tons of time of just consistently stacking small wins in order to see progress in really anything in life. And so we need to have a sustainable system, a sustainable process for that. So again, taking care of your mind is going to be really, really important on all levels, on all fronts. I'm going to give you some very, very simple, applicable things that you can do. And yeah, and we can go from there. But just keep in mind, when I'm talking about this stuff, all I'm referring to here is you need to make sure that you are taking some time to reset, taking some time to visualize, taking some time to not relax, but give yourself some breathing room. That way you have the energy and the ability to attack and be aggressive with all the work that's coming your way. If all you ever do is just go, 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 eventually your ability to perform over and over and over again to that level at the very least is going to diminish. And that we just can't have that because again, we need sustainable outcomes. So one thing on the higher level, in terms of like resetting and taking care of your mind, right, is, well, you're probably not gonna like this, but prayer. And you can replace the word prayer with meditation. That's fine too. All I want you to think about is taking some time away, be alone, in nature maybe, or in your room, whatever you want to do. Just take some time alone and just chill. Just sit with yourself. Okay, let everything stop. Don't bombard yourself with all this shit all of the time. You need to take some time to yourself, and this is a great time to start thinking about what you want. Where are things now? How have things been going? Where were you years ago? Start taking inventory of it all. This is your time to just be with yourself. And for me, I'm not just with myself, I'm with God. And so I'm building that relationship with him. And that's what it is for me. And for me, that is my reset because, and again, I don't want to get too preachy on you, and I'm not at all trying to shove this in anyone's faces, but it would be dishonest of me to not bring this up because this is my process. For me, the relationship with Christ and my moments of prayer, it's not like me just treating him like a genie and asking him, for stuff that I want and to make progress, to hit a bench PR, or whatever. For me, it's almost like a reassurance and a reminder that all of this means nothing. Like you are what is important. He is what is important. And that's all the work I'm doing. It's going to bear plenty of fruit, not just for myself, but for a lot of people. But it's to glorify him. And I know that God doesn't give a shit about a world championship. He doesn't care. He doesn't even, what the fuck is a 700-pound squat to God, right? It's not about that. That's why, he doesn't see you for your actions and for what you say and what you do. He sees you for your heart. He sees through you. He sees what's in here. And that's what's special. So when I reconnect that way, it almost alleviates the burden and the weight, literally, of everything else I'm doing, whether it's in my training, whether it's in my business, my relationship, doesn't matter. And so this time alone to be with myself, this is a very special time because not only do I get to sift through some things, be by myself, no distractions. I just get to think about how things are going and take inventory of everything. But it's also my moment to build my relationship with Christ and remind myself of what matters and what's important. And that's really special because that is how you carry the burden. That is how you shoulder it all, right? And one of my favorite pieces of scripture, it's this one little excerpt from, I think it's Hannah's letter or Hannah's prayer. Some of you may know what I'm referring to. And in it, it says, "For not by might shall man prevail," or "For not by might alone shall man prevail," something like that. And I love that because that means that I was never meant to do it alone, right? I was never meant to shoulder through it all alone. And that's why we were saved, right? So I don't want to harp on this for too long, but you get what I'm trying to say here. Prayer is really important. Call it meditation, call it whatever you want, but it's just taking time for yourself. Okay, so now the second bit to that, which is kind of like in line with that, is have low stakes hobby that is anything but training. Low stakes hobby. I can't stress this enough. This is actually really special. Let me push this down. And really important for me. I have a couple. I play piano. I've been learning guitar. I love to smoke cigars. So that's a very low stakes hobby for me. Obviously, I have my girlfriend. I'll hang out with my girlfriend, although sometimes that's not low stakes. And I like to read. I don't really play video games anymore. But if I do, then we can count that. There's a bunch of different things, right? But you want to have a low stakes hobby, something it's an interest of yours that helps you grow, that helps you learn, that maybe, even if it doesn't, it's your time away where in those moments when you're doing that thing, you're not thinking about anything else, and in a way that resets you, that refills you in a way, and rejuvenates you. And the key is for it to be low stakes. Because you don't want the pressure. You don't want the competition. You don't want this idea that I have to do this. I have to be good at this. I have to. We want to get rid of that. Okay, this is supposed to bring you peace. By the way, prayer brings you peace. That's the whole point, by the way. That was really, I guess, what I was getting at, is that it brings me peace. It eliminates that interference we were talking about because I have full trust. And we could get into that, and that'll be forget about another video. That's a whole series. But yeah, so low stakes hobby, really, really important. Again, one of my go-tos for that, aside from some of the actual things I do, I grab a cigar. Okay, so I go sit, I grab a cigar, and for the length of that cigar, the amount of time it takes me to go from end to end, that's my time to be with myself and to kind of reset mentally, okay? Now, the next thing, and this might be the last thing, I forget, but the next thing that we're gonna talk about when it comes to your mind, the next thing is stop overdoing, I don't know if there's a hyphen there, but maybe there is, dopamine. Now, this is a very broad term here that I'm using, or statement rather. All I'm referring to when I say stop overdoing dopamine is stop distracting yourself with tons of stuff, stop doom scrolling, stop seeking out those dopamine hits, whether it's video games, whether it is Instagram, TikTok, what have you. You got to chill out on all of that, okay? Because all these like short-lived like reward cycles, it just fries your brain. I'm serious. I've lived it. It literally fries your brain. And you get to a point where you genuinely have no motivation anymore because you have to think about your lifestyle when you're constantly hyping yourself up on caffeine and you're constantly, which by the way, going back to the sleep thing, limit your caffeine intake around bedtime. That'll help a lot. Stop having caffeine after like noon, basically. Think of it that way. But what I was saying was, if you're constantly pushing your brain to be excited all of the time and hyping yourself up in all of these different situations, using all of these different systems and things, then at some point you will crash and you will burn. And it will feel like a burnout, a mental burnout for a while, and you won't be motivated to train. And the things that used to bring you joy, that you used to love, that you used to enjoy doing, you no longer love and enjoy doing, and you don't have the motivation to do them anymore. And a lot of that, again, is just the mental burnout. It's just too much, too often, okay? So just chill out on all of that. I found chilling out on all the social media stuff, consuming too much of that crap, TV, again, video games, all that stuff, you got to chill. And on that note, pre-workout, things like that, be careful with how often you take that stuff. I do use pre-workout, but even then, if you keep pairing pre-workout, 300 milligrams of caffeine with your training session, at some point, like, you have to understand, like, these are biological processes, right? So it's not magic. Like, there is a balance to this. Like, at some point, Like for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. It's that, right? At some point, something's got to give. And so you have to keep that in mind. So if you want to take care of your mind, you got to create that balance. Stop overloading yourself with all of this dopamine hit stuff, all right? And I know it sounds very unscientific of me, but this is the best way I could communicate it to you, okay? This last one, and I promise is the last piece of the mind here. There's more we could dive into here, but I want to keep it pretty short. So the last one here is visualization. Now, I want to be clear here. I don't think, the idea of elimination works when it comes to alleviating pressure, anxiety, stress, that sort of thing. Like if I tell you to think about a lemon and then I say stop thinking about the lemon, you won't be able to stop thinking about the lemon. But if I say think about the lemon, and instead of saying stop thinking about it, I say now I want you to think about an orange. It's easier to stop thinking about the lemon because now you're thinking about the orange. I replaced the lemon with something. I didn't tell you to eliminate the lemon altogether. You follow? So it's a similar thing here. Instead of me telling you like, dude, just stop thinking about, I don't think you should ever stop thinking about training and stuff, but stop thinking about your competition, stop thinking about the last time you failed a lift, stop thinking about what if, stop. That'll never work, okay? So instead we need to substitute it with something. We need to replace it with something. Part of the low stakes hobby, by the way, is a way of helping you just take your mind off of all that stuff in a healthy way. But the visualization substitutes those negative thought patterns with positive ones, okay? And I find that to be very, very effective. So you visualize the best outcome possible for you. If you struggle with this, look at other people's outcomes. I sometimes struggle imagining myself squatting 826 pounds. So all I have to do is just go on Instagram and watch Ashton Ruska squat 826 pounds. Now it's easier for me to visualize it because I see him literally doing it. And so that's how I do it, man. Like I think that that's a super powerful tool, trick, and hack for guarding the mind and improving your ability to manage negative thoughts. Now, like I said, there's a lot that we can unpack here, but visualization is a great way for you to repair your mind in a way when it comes to dealing with the negative thoughts that might impact your performance in the gym, okay? So that is the entire third concept, the mind. Like I said, we might be missing a couple pieces here, but for the sake of this video, I think this will all do very well for you. Now, there's one final concept we have to talk about. It's very simple, very easy, but also very important for recovery. You've heard me talk about this before. I'm gonna say aim for 10K. Okay, if you can do more, great. If you end up having to do less, it's okay. But getting my steps in is huge. It helps with my recovery. It helps with my mindset. And it's an opportunity also for me to do different things, to learn different things. Sometimes I read, sometimes I listen to a podcast. Sometimes I've been learning German on Duolingo. Sometimes I do that. Sometimes I take my calls when I'm on the treadmill. I do low intensity, steady state cardio anyway to help me maintain my weight. It helps with just all that. But it is really, really helpful for your recovery overall, okay? And there are plenty of studies on this that show, I believe it's 10K steps is the minimum, but 10K steps and up has been super beneficial for longevity, okay? For literally living longer. And honestly, I found that to be true for myself. I notice right away when I start missing cardio sessions or I start missing out on thousands of steps each day, I notice that in how I feel the next day, the day after, sometimes even the week after. So it's really important to make sure you're getting your steps in. Now, I live a very sedentary lifestyle. Most of my work is either training, filming like this, or I'm on my laptop, okay? So that means that I really don't have an opportunity to get a lot of steps in, which is why I have to do cardio. So I'm not saying that you have to do cardio to get your steps in. If you live a very active lifestyle, great, you've already accomplished it, okay? But for me, I use cardio machines to make sure I can get my steps in. And as of right now, I average about maybe like 8,000 steps a day, which is still not enough, honestly. And I do think that if I was averaging 10,000 steps a day, I'd feel amazing. It's very good for my training sessions. I genuinely feel better when I train as a result of getting enough steps in. And like I said, I think overall for recovery and longevity, getting your steps in, super, super important. Along that note, I'm gonna have to throw in the whole GPP, so general preparedness. I'm gonna have to throw in the mobility drills and the active recovery sessions and all that shit. Like, if you want to do that, sure, I don't do that. If you want to have like weighted stretching sessions and all this other stuff, like, go for it. Yoga, all that stuff, sauna sessions, that's great for recovery. We could put that on the board. Sauna has been proven for all that. So I just want you to understand that like this stuff, this is like icing on the cake, okay? Whether it's a sauna, cold plunge, steps, whatever. Sleep, nutrition, taking care of your mind, those are the primary cores, concepts. This is icing on the cake. If you're not prioritizing and optimizing your sleep, if you're not prioritizing optimizing nutrition, if you're not prioritizing optimizing the mental aspect of things, this ain't gonna do shit, okay? So you need to make sure that you are getting your steps in. And like I said, we can lump in sauna, cold plunge, yoga. I don't know, what else do people do these days? Fucking, I don't know. I mean, I literally don't even know. Massages. Like, I don't do any of this shit, okay? If I had a sauna, I would sauna. Honestly, a traditional sauna, absolutely. But all this other stuff, like I finish every shower with a cold shower. It sucks, but that's more for my mind than it is for my body. Like, I don't give a shit the effects it has on my body. It's hard for me to do. It sucks, so I make myself do it. But everything else, like, I mean, I don't know. Maybe I should do it. But I just, like I said, all this stuff is icing on the cake, okay? So, yeah. All right, guys, that's everything. I mean, those are the major recovery habits that I think will make the biggest impact in your training and in your performance outcomes. All right. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Let me know in the comments any video topics that you want to see in the future. Obviously, you can see I'm creating this balance between educational stuff and my training vlogs, and I'm really excited about it. Honestly, it's probably like the most consistent I've ever been on YouTube. So I would not be able to do it without you guys watching, commenting, liking. It really does mean the world to me. So you guys engaging with this content and finding value in it, even, that is a reward in and of itself. So thank you guys so much for watching and tuning in, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.